I guess just a quick disclaimer. We didn't help write the Cyber Resilience Act.
No, thank God not.
We will not claim that credit.
We're just writing the standards, and that's a challenge enough.
So we'll start off with Happy Halloween, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. So who's heard of the Cyber Resilience Act? Everybody's heard of the Cyber Resilience Act. That's great. And are there any product manufacturers in the room? Yeah? Or software developers? There's a few software developers. This presentation's for you then. Yeah.
Nice.
We're not really going to delve into the Cyber Resilience Act very deeply. We are, last year, Raluca gave a presentation about that. You can check that out. But we're going to give you very brief highlights, and we're going to show you, delve into a little bit about the standards and how they can help you meet the rules of the Cyber Resilience Act. Yeah.
And we are starting with a short introduction. My name is Raluca Viziteu. I work for Bureau Veritas Cybersecurity. I've been working there for the past 3 years or so. I am a security consultant, and my main focus is on standards and regulations and compliance with them.
And I'm Wendy Tonks. I work for a manufacturing company. I work for Omron. You might know our medical stuff. I work in the industrial automation, so I really work in the factory world. So I work with everyone who's making your Coca-Colas and your these kind of things. Now, I've always come from a testing background, and I've been focused on cybersecurity recently, and especially since the Cyber Resilience Act. And that's why I decided to get involved with the standardization work, so that we can see how it will impact what we're doing.
Yeah, and we're both part of the CEN CENELEC Working Group 9 that drafts the horizontal standards for the Cyber Resilience Act. There are multiple working groups, different standards, so it can get confusing, but Working Group 9 is the one that drafts the horizontal standards. I've been there for the past year, and I think Wendy has been there longer.
Yeah, just a year and a half. And the horizontal standard is the one that applies to everything. So, yeah. Okay.
And we're going to talk about our experience there, mostly. But, yeah.
So, thank you. So, we've got a few topics to talk about. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about the EU strategy and introduce the Cyber Resilience Act very briefly.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that after this slide. But yeah, we're going to talk about the introduction to the Cyber Resilience Act and also about how it impacts different industry sectors, and especially new ones that haven't been really targeted in the past, like software manufacturers. And also about how to get involved with the standards, but that's all the way at the end of the presentation.
And we're going to talk about the challenges that we've undergone along the way. Okay? I think this slide is on me. This is just a little bit of an overview of what the European Union is doing with regards to cybersecurity. There's a lot of different regulations coming out, some of them leading to standards, some of them leading to certificates, some of them leading to teams of people to help achieve these things. The Cybersecurity Act, for example, brought out ENISA. But the things we're focusing on today is really the Cyber Resilience Act. And you can see from the fact that the AI Act, the Data Act, the Machinery Regulation, these are all things that will be impacted by the Cyber Resilience Act and has an impact on the complexities and the conflicts that we have going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, but to look at the brief introduction into the Cyber Resilience Act, the Cyber Resilience Act is a European regulation that targets products with digital elements, and I do challenge you, I like to ask that of our clients, but I also challenge you, find examples of products that are not in scope. And I don't mean exceptions, because there are exceptions. But if you can come up with an example of a product with digital element that's not in scope, or a product in general that's not with digital elements and is not in scope of the regulation, yep, I like to hear examples. So it targets almost all the products that are out there now. We've heard it before today even that most of the products nowadays are smart. or have some sort of digital element. So it targets most of the products that are out there. And the idea is that all products, also hardware and software products, will be designed, secure by design, to have fewer vulnerabilities, and that manufacturers will take security seriously from the beginning of the conception or of the design of the product and throughout its whole life cycle. And that is what the Cyber Resilience Act intends to introduce in the European Union market. Now, there are some hard truths that I would rather we all accept from the beginning before we delve further into understanding what the Cyber Resilience Act means to each and every one of us, and mainly the product manufacturers. The CRA applies to you as a product manufacturer. I just said, please, I challenge you to come up with products that are not in scope. All products with digital elements must meet the same essential cybersecurity requirements. Another hard truth is that it will disrupt revenue streams. No CE mark, no placing on the market in the European Union after 11th of December 2027. And, of course, our uncertainties are no excuse. So, we are working on the horizontal standards. They probably won't be ready in time for manufacturers to start working on the compliance to the Cyber Resilience Act and get ready. So there probably won't be harmonized standards telling you what to do in due time, and you still need to comply. Oh, doesn't work. Thank you. This is a high-level timeline of the regulation. It entered into force in December 2024. There is a small deadline there for finding out the list of notified bodies and the guidelines for the notified bodies that will conduct the third-party assessments, but that's not very relevant to manufacturers. The first big deadline for manufacturers is the 11th of September 2026, when the reporting obligations of actively exploited vulnerabilities and severe cybersecurity incidents becomes mandatory. I will have a slide later on explaining what those reporting obligations are. And then the final and big deadline of the Cyber Resilience Act is the 11th of December 2027, when all of its content and all of the requirements that it imposes become mandatory. The Cyber Resilience Act classifies products into two special categories, and the products that are not in those two special categories, we call them default products, but honestly, I've heard different names. People call them the others or standard products. It's all the products that are not in the special categories, and those are like 90% of the products out there. If you want to find out if a product is in a special category, you look at Annexes 3 and 4 of the regulation. Annex 3 lists the core functionalities of important products, and Annex 4 lists the core functionalities of critical products. That means that if the type of product that's listed there is the end core functionality of the product, then the product is considered to be important. And I will give you an example. If you think of a firewall, if the product you manufacture is a firewall, the firewall is an important product class 1, then that's an important product class 1, and it classifies as that. But if your product or system, because systems are also products under the Cyber Resilience Act, then it gets complicated. But if your product integrates a firewall, that doesn't make the end product important class 1. You need to look at what the end purpose of the product is. And what differs for these special categories is not how many requirements or how the requirements apply to them, it's what's the conformity assessment that you need to conduct for it. So for important products class 1, you can do a self-assessment only if you follow harmonized standard. For class 2, the third-party assessment is mandatory. For critical products, you need to have a cybersecurity certificate from a European certification scheme. The only one available is European Common Criteria right now. And the rest of them, the ones that are not special, a self-assessment is enough.
And just to clarify, the standard we're writing, the horizontal standard, applies to all. And, but for the default class, the standard is probably going to be the most likely standard that you use. Unless you're in a vertical such as maybe a firewall vertical will have its own standard, but most things will fall under the default class, and they will be using the horizontal standard that we've been developing.
Yeah, the vertical standards target the important and critical products, and for the rest of them, which are the majority of them, you kind of rely on the horizontals. I said I have a slide on the reporting obligations. There are some timelines here, not very relevant now, but what's important to know is that once the deadline of September 2026 comes, manufacturers are obliged to, when they discover an actively exploited vulnerability, I'm not going to delve into the definition of that, it's confusing and
you can look it up.
We can't agree on it yet. So if you discover an actively exploited vulnerability or a severe cybersecurity incident, you must go to the computer systems incident response team from the member state you are in with your main establishment as a manufacturer. Tell them this happened and then go to the ENISA single reporting platform and register it there. And you have these deadlines that you can see on the slide for when you must report what. A few challenges for newly or not impacted sectors. So software and consumer electronics must now also bear the CE mark. The CE mark has been there, European conformity has been there for a long time, but it mainly targeted safety. And now its scope is being extended to target cybersecurity as well. And now also software products must bear the CE mark. How? We don't know yet.
Essentially, every software product you make, the statement from the Commission is that every piece of software interacts with its operating system. Therefore, it's a connected device. Therefore, it falls within the scope. And this means that any software that is delivered as part of any kind of market agreement, like if you are making just a supporting tool for your customers who are using your device, that also falls within the scope if it's a piece of software that interacts with an operating system, which of course most software does.
Then for the excluded sectors, there are some exceptions, and the exceptions are there because there are other regulations in those sectors that cover the cybersecurity requirements to a satisfactory level, such that you don't need to comply with two regulations, you just follow the one in your sector. And that happens for medical products, for automotive, aviation, maritime. There are some certain specific exceptions. The issue is that not everything that is manufactured for the automotive industry falls within the scope of that regulation. So the things that are manufactured for the automotive industry but do not fall under the scope of that regulation fall under the scope of the CRA. So the CRA is like this big net that catches everything that falls within the gaps of the other regulations for cybersecurity in different sectors. So check carefully if you're actually excluded, because more often than not, you're not.
Things like routers and firewalls used in hospitals. They're not medical equipment, but they fall under the Cyber Resilience Act instead. Manufacturers
would argue that, but it's for the medical. Yeah, but that's not what the regulation targets. So you need to be careful what you exclude and take CRA into account. For critical infrastructure suppliers, CRA compliance needed to stay eligible under the NIS2 procurement. So NIS2 is introducing some rules, especially for the critical infrastructure suppliers. That's new, and it aligns with the CRA. So CRA is needed to stay compliant under NIS2, and they complement each other. Also, for online marketplaces and distributors, there is a shared responsibility for ensuring product cybersecurity compliance, and here the definition of product under the CRA includes the remote data processing solution used for the product. So that's what I refer mostly with here. If the product uses some sort of online resource, cloud resource, that cloud resource or online resource or remote resource is part of the product that needs to be certified and assessed together with the product. And that's challenging.
Okay, so why do we have standards? We just heard from Raluca how complex this regulation is, and we know that there's a lot of newly impacted sectors now, people who have never had to put CE marking all of a sudden have to do that. So the standards are there to help you to get consistency, well, as a consumer, to get consistency over products, that they're all as secure as they should be, and also to keep a common language to make sure we're all talking about the same things, and also to show conformity, that you've met the rules that are established in these regulations. Harmonized standards in particular, these are requested from the European Commission. They request you to create a harmonized standard, and they request it from just 3 organizations, CEN CENELEC and ETSI. So you will not get harmonized standards from any other organization. And the using of the harmonized standards, it just helps you demonstrate that you're meeting what you need to meet according to the rules that have been defined.
Yeah, so I will repeat this once more. The European standards, the ENs, or harmonized standards in general, can only be adopted by CEN CENELEC or ETSI. Right now, the standards for the cyber resilience are split between CEN CENELEC and ETSI. CEN CENELEC and the working group we're in develops the horizontal standards and part of the verticals, and ETSI develops part of the verticals, even, I would say, most of the verticals. Yeah. And, what's a harmonized standard? Well, there are some requirements for a standard to be called a harmonized standard. It's an European standard that is requested by the European Commission. They do that through a standardization request. You can see the standardization request for the Cyber Resilience Act. It's available. Everything done by the European Commission is available. It grants the presumption of conformity for the CE marking. So the CE marking has extended its scope. It covers this CRA now, and these standards that we are working on are supposed to give the presumption of conformity for the CRA.
I guess one complexity we have with presumption of conformity with this particular standard is, for the first essential requirement, it is that you must design, develop, and produce your digital device in such a way to ensure the cybersecurity of it. But that is a requirement on the processes you follow. But the CE marking goes on the product. So a presumption of conformity has to be provided by the product, not by the processes you're following. And that's where it can get very complicated. And that's where you start getting issues in consensus. How can we declare that we have a presumption of conformity on the process when the product itself needs to be displaying that? Yeah.
And that's just one of the issues. One of the requirements requests that products, updates for products are made available free of charge. You cannot write that in a standard. And if you cannot write that in a standard, then the standard cannot give presumption of conformity because it's not fully covering the requirements. And yeah, we face these kind of challenges given how big the CRA is and how wide the requirements are. It's hard to write standards that are general enough to give presumption of conformity. And these standards are developed under the European Commission's mandate, and they must be market-oriented, public interest-driven, and consensus-based. And we do struggle with consensus.
Yes.
Of course, no contradictions are allowed. So once these harmonized standards are published, then the other standards must align with them. So think of standards from NIST or other organizations like that. They must align with these harmonized ones in the European Union. Why it matters? A harmonized standard defines the technical requirements for obtaining the CE marking. And without the CE marking, a product cannot be placed on the market in the European Union after December 2027 for CRA.
Yep. Okay, we don't have any words on this slide. This is just to explain a little bit about some of the challenges we're having. So you start off with a standardization committee as a group of experts. These people could be experts in standards, or they can be product experts, or experts in in secure coding or in some kind of special cryptography. And they all want to get their part into the standard that we're writing. And if you look at the first picture, you can see everyone's requesting things and you're not getting anywhere. There's nothing can turn in any of those cogs. The goal is to get to the collaborating together and achieve that summit of having a perfect standard. We have representatives from manufacturing organizations like my company. We've got people coming from the open source community, because of course open source doesn't fall within the scope, but all software uses open source, and they want to make sure that their ideology is aligned with what we're trying to achieve as well. You've got massive big corporations that already have all of their processes in place and are already following their cybersecurity strategy. And then because we're talking here about software, you've also got small, medium enterprises or single person software developers who are making a game to put onto your mobile phone. And they have to follow the same standard. They've got to put that CE marking on as well. And how do you write a standard that achieves everything for everyone without putting undue burden on these really small enterprises?
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about this a lot, but think of the big corporations. They can have many people join these standards groups because they have the money to pay for it. But then a small, medium enterprise wouldn't. So they have one person, and then that one person is fighting with the opinion of 7. And that's consensus. And I won't go further into this.
There's a lot for a long time on this. Yeah.
Also, the timeline is very ambitious, but I have a slide on that.
Another challenge of consensus is that everyone wants to use the standard they're already using. Yeah. So you've got automotive standards, you've got medical standards, you've got standards of for industrial automation. We use the IEC 62443. I think it's perfect. Why don't we all use that? Yeah, but there's a lot of requirements in there that don't fit, for example, a small and medium enterprise. So when people say, why don't you use an existing standard? This is why. There's so many of them. Which one, and how does it work for everyone? So we have to take all of the best ideas from here, simplify it down, pull out the core ideas, core processes, and deliver a more horizontal solution for everyone.
Yeah, and think that our horizontal standards need to apply to medical devices, OT environments, IT environments, software, open source software. How do you write a standard to be suitable for all of them? And this is the timeline that includes the deadlines for the standards. I won't go through them one by one, but you can read it in our presentation after. So, as I said earlier, the timeline we were given to develop these standards was very ambitious. So the standardization request was issued last year in December. And we delivered the first draft in May this year. The most mature standards out there have a consensus, have a timeline for reaching consensus of about 5 years. We have 1 if we are generous with it. So
we're in inquiry right now, so we're on our second mature draft, and it's in inquiry. So there's an opportunity now.
So you can find it out there, the one we worked on.
You can start commenting on it already. Yeah.
Yes, please provide feedback. It's the best chance to make these standards good in any way, because they're not going to be good in their first version.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's the truth.
When you have just a few months, this is the reality. Yeah. So we've already mentioned that, there's so many different interested parties, but most people are coming from big organizations that are already aware of standards. They know what standardization is. They're already putting CE marking on because they're making products. But we need people coming from the software development community that are not used to this and are going to be impacted by it to come in and get involved. Join your standardization body. You can get early access to the standards. You can join in on voting. You can put comments in and really impact what the text is in those standards. So just reach out to your national body and see how you can help.
Yeah. And we could definitely use more women.
We could always use more women in standardization. Yeah. And that's our last slide. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was our presentation.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions in the room? Oh.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious, what do you think, how will it affect the open source development and developers?
So we have members of the open source community actively joining the sessions and helping write the standards. So they are, of course, putting their best interest forward. It's not the CRA doesn't apply to open source. The pressure is on the manufacturers who integrate the open source to make sure it's. My ideal would be that it would mean more manufacturers are contributing to open source, but if that happens, then that's a good thing.
The CRA only applies to open source software that is made commercially available. So not everything that's out there, but the responsibility with the CRA for third-party components, and open source software would be a third-party component, is with the manufacturer. And they need to make sure that those components are compliant with the CRA in the long term. And then that might imply that they get more involved in the development of open source software, or it might imply that some of it, will go away. But we don't know.
Yeah. Did that answer?
Oh, did that answer your question? Yeah.
So I have two questions. The structure is very similar to the AI Act with the format and stuff, and it was the first time that software was put into product legislations, which was traditionally for hardware products, of course. So my two questions are, how do the AI Act and the CRA, do they overlap? Do they work together? Do they exclude each other? And my second question, would you say that in adding the purely software products into these legislations, was that a mistake?
With regards to the first question, the AI Act, we do have people who are working on the AI standards who are also joining the sessions for the Cyber Resilience Act. I don't know exactly the way it's worded in the regulation, but they are supposed to be complementary and not conflicting. So there should be the standards should also fall the same way.
Yeah, I can explain this more after, if you would like me to, but they are written, so there is this legal base called the New Legislative Framework. It's explained in the Blue Guide, and both regulations are built on top of that, and they are similar because of that. And the same goes with NIS2, with the Red Delegated Act, with, these regulations that come up and bother us now. And they are meant to complement each other. So they don't necessarily bump into each other a lot, but they are meant to work together to make the European Union a safer place for all of us.
So if an AI, because there's also marking in the AI Act.
Yeah.
So is that then one marking?
Yeah.
Or two markings, one from AI Act and one from CRA?
If you think of a hardware product that has it has, for example, electrical requirements. It's got maybe it's got falls within the radio equipment directive. So there's already a lot of regulations that hardware have to achieve to get that CE marking. You have one marking, but you have to prove that you've met all of the regulations there, and that will be the same with any software product that has AI. You will have one marking, but your declaration of conformity will show I can prove that I meet this standard and this standard and this standard.
Yeah. And depending on when you get the CE mark, you can look it up and see what was in scope at that time. And there are a bunch of regulations there for safety mainly, and now also cybersecurity.
Yeah. Did that answer your questions?
The second was it a mistake to have purely software products onto
we are not in
product
we don't get to choose that.
We don't get to judge the European Commission.
Yes, we can. System. Okay, next question.
Hey, thank you for your talk. I think the Cyber Resilience Act is also very important. But one of the elements of the Act is the reporting obligation. And I work in the OT industry, so the automation industry. And the problem is we make a lot of one-off machines, like 30 a year. And that means that if we have to comply with reporting obligation, then we have to monitor all the products in all our machines. And if one of them has a security breach, then we need to inform our clients. But the thing is, most of our machines are air-gapped. Or do you think it's enough for our industry to say we only monitor the VPN client, the router, the firewall? Or do you think, no, even if the machine itself is completely closed off from the internet, we still need to monitor it for 5 or more years, the lifetime of our machines?
So it's really based off your risk assessment. And if you really have an air-gapped system, and you can prove that there's no way for that vulnerability to be exploited, then it's not an exploitable vulnerability. You only have to report exploited vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and well, this is a complicated conversation. Everything boils down to your risk assessment, so I fully agree with that. But you don't need to monitor everything. You need to make sure that the product is free of vulnerabilities at the moment of placing on the market, and then you only report what you are made aware of. So you don't go and constantly monitor everything. You need to be made aware of that vulnerability, and it needs to be actively exploited or a severe cybersecurity incident, and those are the ones you report, and then you have some obligations to inform your customers.
Okay, that makes it a lot easier. Thank you for your answer.
He's just saying you totally saved my ass. Okay, well, because of time, are you here the whole day?
Yes, for a few hours.
If there are other questions, they can come to you. Thank you so much for this talk.